Hey, Tatooine Sons family, this is David. Happy New Year. I hope your 2023 is off to an amazing start. As we kind of talked about at the end of last year, we realized that a lot of the topics that we discuss on every episode include big time spoilers. And that means that if you haven't watched a particular movie or an episode of a show yet, or played a specific game like we talked about on this week's episode with God of War Ragnarok, you may be forced to skip the episode until you've completed that game, which would like 25 hours would take a while. So we don't want you to miss out on all of the other conversations that we have on the episode because you're worried about being spoiled in just one segment. So we are releasing each of our main topics in smaller individual episodes that last anywhere between 10 and 15 minutes each. Today's episode is a little different. It's about something that we probably had no intention of talking about until Sam got excited about it. It's the new Netflix show Kaleidoscope, starring Ginacarlo Esposito, Moff Gideon from The Mandalorian. I'll let Sam explain why he's excited about this. So of those three, those of you listening right now, we finally watched John Wick.
We finally did.
Yeah.
So we watched all three of them.
See, Nathan and I, like the reason we did this is Nathan and I have been putting together this list of movies we've been wanting to watch. We're up to like 32 titles or something like that.
Cut off two.
We cut out two. And then...
well, John Wick is actually 3 movies.
Well, so. It's titles. Like some of them are series, one of which being John Wick. So we decided to pick, because we'd heard a lot about the movies. But
which is your favorite of the 3?
Ooh. Honestly, I think I'm going to go with 2.
We're all unanimous because Nathan and I were already talking about this earlier today.
So, yeah. I think 2 is really interesting. I think
it's where the story is first really, truly introduced.
Yeah.
And it's front and center instead of just a ton of action. They have a lot of story in it. So, and it looks like this new one might be going that way.
It's got Chirrut.
It has Chirrut.
So
and the guy from the end of Bullet Train.
He's in like every movie.
I don't even know who we're talking about.
He's
all right,
like typecast as
let's not talk about that.
Anyway,
let's talk about this.
Yeah, so there's this new series. It released a couple days.
January 1st.
Yeah, January 1st on Netflix. The little blurb they have for it is spanning 24 years. Kaleidoscope centers around the largest heist ever attempted and the vengeance, scheming, loyalties, and betrayals that surround it. It's loosely inspired by the real life story where $70 billion in bonds went missing in downtown Manhattan during Hurricane Sandy.
That's a lot of money.
That is a lot of money. I'm surprised I've never heard of that until researching this series. But the series has 8 episodes that can be watched in any order, save for the finale. You have to watch the finale last. And you still get the full story, meaning every viewer might have a different perspective on the story based on what order they chose to watch.
You calculated this out. Mom was asking about it. How many variations could there be?
Yeah, of the first 7 episodes, there's 5,040 different variations you can have.
That's insane.
Yeah. All for just one series. You don't have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You can watch the first 7.
It's a really interesting idea.
It really is. So first off, though, I just want to get y'all's initial opinions based on the trailers that you've watched and the concept of the series. Are y'all interested in giving this one a watch?
Oh, of course,
Nate.
I mean, I'd love to watch it. It seems interesting and fun. I mean, different than anything we've watched before, and kind of one that finally works with the binge release form of Netflix.
Oh, that's true. I hadn't thought about it.
Because if it was week by week, then the gimmick would be meaningless. But now that it's binge release, you can choose anyone, and it's going to be fun to see how people react to it, watching it in different ways. It's just somebody might have a lower review based on how they watched it, or have a higher
because they don't like a specific episode versus
that started it in the story from there. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out on the rating side and how that works. But overall, I mean, I know it's already in top 10 on Netflix right now. So
that's awesome.
It's great. Yeah.
It's interesting when you talk about it from that perspective about ratings and reactions, and how I think that you could see somebody start off and not like where the series is going, or like a specific episode in the series. And then when they get to 7 or 8th episode that they've watched, suddenly that episode becomes their favorite. The previous one they didn't like becomes their favorite because of things that happened in it.
And
I think that's a really interesting idea. The other thing that is, when I watched this trailer, I immediately sent this to all of you guys and I'm like, this is giving me major Oceans vibes.
I got that too.
And we love Oceans 11, 12, and 13. We don't talk about Oceans 8.
That's a series we watched the most.
That's one of those, like, I think I asked, I think Pete Fletcher was I was listening to him and Nick Mielke from the streaming Star Wars network.
Yeah.
They were interviewing Greg Grunberg on that episode last week, and they have a question that they ask people, like, about, like, what's your favorite non Star Wars movie. But I think that they were doing it from the perspective, I think Greg Grunberg actually responded this way. Maybe I'll ask it. He responded back and said, maybe I'll ask you guys, what's the one movie that when you see it, it's like you're flipping around the channels and you land on it?
You're like, yeah,
that one's going to probably stay on. Ocean's 11 or 12 would be
any
one
of
those
yeah.
For me. And so I love this idea because of that. But then you add in the kaleidoscope element, the different ideas and how it looks differently based on how you arrange it with it. I think it's going to be fantastic. And I wonder if it's going to be rewatchable as a result of that.
Yeah, you watch it in a different order, and maybe you know, because we'll get to this in a second, but there's going to be tie-ins to every episode. You're going to miss a tie-in on your first watch through. You're going to miss something every episode.
Absolutely.
So doing it again, you're like, oh, I remember that. That makes more sense now.
Yeah.
There's going to be so many, like, yeah, I mean,
the concept itself, we could literally.
Do you think this is going to be too gimmicky to succeed? Because this is complicated.
I'll let you go first because I think I've shared my opinion as to what I think about this.
I think gimmicks, while risky, never fail because people still want to try them out, and no matter what, people will submit to them and try it out all the way because it's still fun. It's different. I mean, people want new things and have fun with new things with the media they kind of take in, because that's what makes new shows so popular. That's what makes, like, Game of Thrones was so insanely popular because it was a highly cinematic, epic show for the first time that we've seen. Mandalorian was popular because it was a new character in Star Wars that didn't really take place
on
with
par
the Skywalkers.
with the movies too.
Exactly. So this one, it's a new thing and it's different on Netflix, and most people have Netflix nowadays, and if they just want something fun,
or they have somebody's password.
Exactly. If they just want something fun to watch and something new to experience, then they can just they'll watch it. And
yeah,
so
you make a really good point, BB Nate, because the idea isn't just
here's a new interesting
it's
story.
A new and interesting story. I think that what you're saying about how people will try it because it's new and different and fresh, I think that that's a really important point. Where you're going to see whether or not this actually worked is whether or not, when everyone has completed, or the vast majority of people have completed it, if it's exciting enough that they want another version, like another return, like a Kaleidoscope season 2, but a different story, different actors, that kind of thing. And if people are clamoring for
Glass Onion,
if they're clamoring for a return to this type of experience, then it works. I think it's either going to be a tremendous success or a complete flop when it's all the way over. It either is going to work or it's just not going to work. So
I mean, it's cool how they're taking a for lack of a better term, meta approach to it. They're playing with the same medium, but outside the medium to make it work. I think that's really cool. But, media kind of toying with the viewer's perspective is nothing new. There's plenty of movies that have done this, like Memento, The Prestige, Fight Club, Interstellar, and pretty much all of M. Night Shyamalan's movies. But Nate,
sometimes they work and sometimes they don't, right?
Yeah. Nate, both of our favorite films use this idea of playing with the viewer's perspective. Yours being Inception, right? And mine being Interstellar. And many of those movies I listed just a second ago are widely loved as well. So why do you think this concept of changing the viewer's perspective or messing with the viewer's perspective can result in such a memorable story?
Because it's rare for people to watch movies multiple times if they don't enjoy them. And so somebody watches this for the first time and has a big twist at the end. They're like, oh, I want to watch it again to see if I can pick up on something different. They watch it again and they're like, oh, wait, I enjoy that even more now. As you can tell with people like Last Jedi, everybody said, second watch, it's so much better. That's pretty much how it goes with most movies. I can't think of a movie I don't normally either like less because I can get a better opinion or enjoy more on a second watch. I did that with Avatar this past week. I watched it again and I enjoyed it more because I was able to follow it better. I think it's better because I'll give it more time. And then these movies become so popular because people want to pick up on different things. They do that. They watch the movie again. They're like, oh, I forgot how great that movie is. Like with Fight Club, we watched it for the first time a couple weeks ago, and I mean, after we finished it, we're like, wow, that was a fun movie. It was fine. I don't understand what all the hype is about all that much, but it was good. And then thinking more and more about it, thinking about watching it again would be like, oh wait, maybe we could pick up on that. And so
we were picking up on things just thinking about it. We're like, oh, he has the same, same briefcase. Like, oh my gosh.
So I can't imagine how it would be watching it again, and we most likely, I can guarantee, we would enjoy it more the second time. So
I think the first movie that I ever had that type of an experience with was The Sixth Sense, right? And so we talk about M. Night Shyamalan,
classic.
And so we joke about it, but it's the truth. The answer to your question is it? Does it work either way? And sometimes it really, really works. M. Night Shyamalan, Signs. I love that movie. I think it's great.
Signs
The Village,
great.
The Village is
great.
fantastic.
Unbreakable.
Sixth Sense and Unbreakable, they always work, right? A lot of his other stuff just doesn't work.
Right.
And so, exactly with it. I think it's funny how, the thinking of Sixth Sense, right? Every time you see the color red, that's when there's a spirit there. And then you get to Ocean's 12.
Yeah.
And you have Bruce Willis at the end playing Bruce Willis, and people are talking to him about, oh yeah, I knew it. I saw it as soon as you were sitting in the dinner at the dinner with your wife, I knew it. And he's like, sure you did. All of that. Yeah. It's that kind of thing that makes those types of movies fun. So
yeah, I think one thing that's interesting to keep in mind is, movies like Memento. We watched that in Florida, in Orlando.
Yeah.
And we were like, okay, that was interesting, but it was almost so gimmicky that we didn't get it because it was really tough to follow the way it was. It was
that's Christopher Nolan.
That was one of his first.
Right?
That was his first movie after The Following. That was his first actually
cinematic movie,
full budget movie.
And upon a second watch, it made a lot more sense. We really enjoyed it a lot more, but it was almost so confusing that first time that we almost kind of gave up on it. Dad, what do you think the difficulties of creating this kind of story are?
If you're not Christopher Nolan.
If you're not, Christopher.
Well, no, even if you are Christopher Nolan, the reality is the difficulty of these types of stories happens because one tiny little mistake can ruin the whole continuity of it, the whole thing. That's why when you go back and you watch A Sixth Sense or you go back and watch Interstellar or one of these types of films, right? And it works as well, if not even better, the second time, that it's special. But then you go back and you watch some of these other stories and you're like, yeah, that doesn't, it falls apart. What about this? You got continuity errors. You start nitpicking it because you know that the director and the writer are trying to pull one over on you up until the big reveal at the end. And so you want to go back and be like, did they really pull that off?
Yeah.
And so you're more critical on the second watching. The Prestige is a great one.
Absolutely.
When it comes to that kind of thing. So
yeah.
And that's why I think that we should watch Dunkirk again, because I watched it for a second time a couple months ago.
I did not like that movie.
I didn't either.
And I didn't either after the first watch. We were in California and we all agreed that was slow and kind of boring and confusing. And then I had pneumonia and I'm like, I'm going to watch it again. And I enjoyed it so much more because
you go into it with a different perspective, a different mindset.
I was able to follow it better because I knew kind of what was going to happen. And I was sick. I was doped up. Maybe that's why.
Maybe that's why he enjoyed it so much, right?
Maybe I was able to follow it better because my mind was.
So basically, you're saying if we could get high,
let's get high and watch Dunkirk. Yeah,
that's probably not going to happen.
No, never.
But I mean, I kind of think it's just inherent with these kinds of movies and stories. You go into it with a different perspective and mindset. You're like, okay, I know. Oh, this is a Christopher Nolan movie, or oh, this is an M. Night Shyamalan movie. There's going to be a twist. There's going to be something more to this. So you're going to watch it more intently, and you're going to watch it with that mindset, as opposed to something like, the Fight Club. I wouldn't have expected a twist.
Well, that's the beautiful thing about the Fight Club is most people, when it first came out, nobody knew the twist was going to be
I only knew that there was a twist. I didn't know what the twist was, but I knew that there was a twist. So Nate and I were sitting there the whole movie trying to figure it out. For people watching it when it came out, that's going to be a completely over their head because they're not going into it with that perspective.
Unless they read the book.
That's fair. Yeah, no, that's a good point. But it's interesting how one's perspective can kind of completely change their recollection of events too. I mean, we've gone back and said, we watched this when it was this time in our life. That's probably why we didn't like it. We went back and watched it again at a different time in our life. We're like,
makes more sense. It's a better movie
now because we're not grumpy or whatever. You know, like you have that mindset with Interstellar because you were dealing with some work stuff during that.
Yeah.
So the perspective can completely change the way you remember something. Like I'm sure is going to happen with Kaleidoscope. You know. A good example of this can be watching a sports game. You know, one person's rooting for team A, other person's rooting for team B. Penalty is called. Person rooting for team A thinks it's completely justified, while team B person is like, no, that was a crap call. Why did they do that? They both saw the exact same thing. Nothing changed in the play, but their perspective changed the way they, quote unquote, viewed it. Dad, what do you think would change if whenever people got into disagreement, like with sports or just, I guess, life in general,
politics,
people get into disagreements all the time.
The two things you're not allowed to discuss: politics and religion.
Yeah, let's just go there. You know, what would change if when people got into a disagreement, they stopped and considered the other person's not opinion, but their perspective behind what their point in the argument?
Yeah, I mean, this is a really interesting question, and the way that you phrased it kind of put me in a position that I wasn't expecting with this, but that's okay because I think it's important, right? There are two sides to my social media experience. Okay. I have my personal connections on Facebook, right? And it's very limited. I made that decision a few years ago. I'm going to pretty much stay with close family, close friends, people I know from my work community, faith community, and that kind of thing. And I have an experience with them, right? And then we have Tattooing Sons, which is Twitter, right? Twitter and Facebook. And there's a different world.
Absolutely.
With that. Politically, socially, all of that, right? And so what that has done for me as the one that manages, you know, obviously my own personal Facebook account, but also all of our Tattooing Sons social media account, it has actually been very healthy because I've been able to see, I mean, the 2020 election is a perfect example of this. I had one side of my world where it was just Trump, and it was Republican, and it was, Biden stole the election, right?
Yeah.
And then I had the other side, which was Biden. He won fair and square. Trump is a moron and an idiot and corrupt. And having the opportunity to see the arguments from both sides, I think makes me a healthier individual mentally. It gives me a better perspective. It makes me a better person to do that. And I think that the echo box of your own perspective is one of the most dangerous things that you can ever face. If the only people in your world are parroting back to you the things that you already believe, you are missing it in a major way. Perspective is important.
Kind of to a lesser extent, but something I've been realizing in school and mainly the Rocket Club that I'm a part of is I understand more and more now why it's so important for engineers to work in teams, and larger teams.
Because you used to hate that.
I did. I really did hate working in teams because I was, like, oh, their grade is, or their performance is reflected on my grade. Right. But the more and more I work in teams, the more and more I realize it's important because you have a varying set of opinions. One person will throw out an idea, and one other person might be like, oh, that's brilliant. And then another guy's like, well, no, let's think about that. Think about it this way. Oh, that doesn't make sense. Let's keep brainstorming. It's kind of that same concept, and I'm realizing that more and more through a very different medium. It's not social media. It's not so explosive, I guess. But
it's funny you're talking about rocket science
and
not
it's
being
not as explosive. But it's just interesting to learn that the more varying of opinions you have, the kind of better the results
I think
are.
So. I do too.
It's that kind of, I don't know, not groupthink. What was that show? Wisdom of the Crowd.
That was a really great show until the guy got busted for being a complete creep. Anyway.
Yeah, the show was interesting though. But it's that kind of
season?
concept.
He didn't even finish the first season because he got he was a creep.
It was bad.
Anyway, the main actor.
Just bad acted it. But I just think it's interesting how that can change things. But anyway, we are definitely interested in giving this series a watch. So now all you have to do is find the time for it.
We'll figure it out.
Kaleidoscope is out now on Netflix, so give it a watch in whatever order you want.
That's awesome.
Save the finale.
That's right. It'll be interesting to see what your feedback is on that. So, we've actually gotten the chance to watch a couple of the episodes of Kaleidoscope since our recording a couple of days ago. And so far, it's really good. We started with the first episode that was listed on Netflix in the order that they had. I don't know if it's the same for everybody else, but at least in our order. And then we decided to change it up and pick another one randomly. So Christy picked one based on her favorite color. We were a little bit floored by how well those two episodes worked together. It was almost like the second episode that we watched perfectly answered all of the questions that we had from the first episode that we saw. So it was a little bit creepy with that. I'm sure we'll watch another episode and I'll keep you in the loop as to what I think about it. Thank you so much for checking out this little segment from our Full Tatooine Sons episode this week. We'll release another short episode tomorrow. It will be about the Bad Batch, primarily season 1, some of our speculation regarding season 2, and then I'll probably tag on some of our initial reactions from the first episodes of season 2 on the end of that. So you can be looking for that. Of course, you can hear a lot more about the show, our Is It Canon segment, our Movie Moments segments. They're on the full episode. It released earlier this week. So we'd love for you to check us out there and follow us on all of our socials at Tatooine Sons. That's Sons with an O. And as always,
may the force be with you.